So hi, everybody. My name is Ken Kent. I'm the founder of Signworld 33 years ago this month. January 25th will be 33 years in business. I started with my own sign company in Honolulu, Hawaii. My largest customer was the Bank of Hawaii. Today, we're going to have 4 Signworld owners live on camera. We're waiting for 2 more to log in. And our agenda is very simple, very simple. We just go round robin, we'll go around the horn, and everybody asks your questions, whatever questions you have regarding Signworld, the organization, the industry, and so on. And then each one of our owners will answer your questions from their perspective. So you're going to get 4 answers to every question that you ask. We'll have plenty of time to get all the questions answered. And as I said, we like to go in a round robin fashion. So Ray, you're going to be first up. So please be ready, followed by Corbin Rowley, followed by Greg Mickle, and then Ron, and so on. So whatever your greatest concern is, whatever your greatest challenge is, turn that into a simple open-ended question. So if it's questions about income, ask them. If it's questions about hiring and retaining people, ask them. If it's questions about exit strategy, ask those questions, whatever they may be. Okay, so let's get started. Let's introduce our Signworld owners. So Mike Riley, give us a wave. Mike, tell us who you are, what you used to do, and tell us about your business. Go ahead.
Okay, so my company is called Starfish Signs and Graphics. We're located in San Clemente, California, which is on the coast and sort of midway between LA and San Diego. We are approaching 9 years in business. I guess it's 8.5 years right now. Our facility has expanded in steps over the years. We're now at about 4,500 square feet, although we sublease about 400 of that to someone that's using one of our offices. So we're actually occupying 4,100. Employees, we're sort of in a strange situation, but to give you the quick answer, we've got 9 people who spend time here, but 2 of those are my wife and I, so 2 owners, and the others add up to 5.5 full-time equivalents. And basically what we're trying to do, we have 2 employees who are pregnant and are planning some extended time out on maternity leave. So we're trying to plan for that. Our biggest customer last year is a company called the Irvine Company. They own a lot of commercial real estate nearby. They're interesting in 2 ways. One is we did 101 jobs with them last year. So in terms of number of jobs, there was a lot. The jobs that we deal directly with them tend to be small. So we probably averaged $500 per job, so $50,000 for those 101 jobs. But they refer us to their tenants, and in fact, they require their tenants to use us in some cases. And that business was probably $200,000. So an interesting mix. My background, my training is biochemical engineering. I did that for 30 years, and just I'll add one little tidbit. If you've seen the photos where Pfizer is making the vaccine in Kalamazoo, Michigan, I worked in that facility.
Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you. Steve Kapp. Steve, give us a wave. Come off of mute. Come off of mute. Okay, Steve, tell us about yourself, what you used to do, and tell us about your business today.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. So I run Denver Signs and Graphics here in Castle Rock, Colorado. In my former life, I was IT director at Cisco Systems, and prior to that at the Boeing Company as an engineering manager. Right now we're occupying about 4,000 square feet, a little over 4,000 square feet here in Castle Rock, which is about almost halfway between Denver and Colorado Springs. So we service a wide geography, We've been in business approaching 3 years now. It'll be 3 years this coming up April. And we're now at 5 people on staff. It's kind of bounced around a little bit due to COVID and stuff and other personnel changes that have gone on this past year, but largely remained about 5 people. Largest customer this past year was, for me, was a company called Gables Corporation. They're a real estate investment trust, and they specialize in building high-end luxury apartment complexes, multifamily unit kind of opportunities. And we've been working with them over the last year to put in signage for a 12-story unit, about 550 units altogether, and all the associated ADA kind of signage and directories and, you know, amenities and things like that for a full-on complex like that. So that's about $100,000 to us. I'm still waiting for the check, but it's coming.
Steve, what is your projected gross sales for 2021?
21, we're probably looking at between 600,000 and 700,000. I have a prospect that we're working with right now that we're kind of in our infancy with in Mohawk Industries, and they say they want to spend $1 million with us, but I'm a little dubious of that, so I'm kind of hedging my bet a little bit there.
Okay, back to you, Mike Riley. What is your projected gross sales for 2021?
Well, recognizing, of course, there's a difference between projected and target. Our target, we're in the early stages of mapping out our budget for the year, but our budget is 1.2 million.
1.2 million. Okay. And Jack Warner, what's your story?
I joined Signworld back in 1995 as a Signworld operation. I named it 3D Signs after 3 of my boys, Dennis, Danny, and David. I started in 1,200 square feet with 1 employee. I ended up in 5,000 square feet with a staff of 11, doing about 1.3 million in sales. Back in the days when we were still more retail, when we didn't have the internet and we didn't do a lot of these other subcontractor projects, we were more of a banner and sticker shop at that time. I then sold my operation, joined Ken in kind of a partnership operation for a number of years. I finished buying Ken out 6 years ago and took over as president owner of Signworld. Ken has stayed on as director of sales, teaching some sales classes and advisor to us. So we've got a good long-term relationship together. When I answer questions today, if it goes more to my experience of running an operation, I'll speak from that perspective. If it goes more from either training or from what the current status of the rest of the Signworld organization is, I'll speak from that perspective. So depending on the question, I might answer from this side or from this side. Sheree, any update on Jim Tardif? Is he on his way close or not available?
I can't get a hold of him.
Okay.
So I'll keep trying.
Okay, we'll start with where we're at here, Ken, and we'll see if Jim catches in, and maybe we can catch up with him on some of these questions and have him answer them all at once.
Okay, well, let's get started then. So Ray, come off of mute, Ray, and give us a question.
So my question is twofold, and that is, what do you like best about being an owner? And then the flip side of that is, what do you like least about being an owner?
Mike Riley?
Well, what I like best is I'm an engineer. I like to solve problems. I like to build things. So we've oriented our business in that way. We like to fabricate and install. And in the custom sign business, it's a constant problem solving process because everything is different or somewhat different. What do I like the least? There's not too much I can think of. I occasionally will have a difficult customer, you know, because everything we do is custom. It's not like customers are always familiar with the process. And, you know, if we get customers who sort of don't trust us and want to micromanage the process, that's not so much fun.
Okay. Steve Cap, What do you like the best about your business? What do you like the least?
Well, you know, to echo, what Mike just said, um, you know, I like the problem solving element of things. I'm an engineer too by background in education. I like the personal interaction with customers, trying to help them solve problems, trying to be consultative in what we do as a sign making operation, and you know, kind of helping their business in a sense. Um, Probably the least thing I like is having to deal with like broken down equipment and finding technicians to repair it, or you know, the unexpected when you're trying to get something out the door and you know then something is not working and you end up having to, you know, send a bad message to a customer. That those are the kinds of things that are kind of a little bit frustrating, but you know, on the grand scheme of things, that's kind of minor at the end of the day.
Okay. Jack Warner, back in the day, what did you like the best about your business? What did you like the least?
You know, every day was a different custom project. It wasn't repetitious. You got to see the results of what you made. It's a happy business. When you put somebody's sign on their building, they're pretty proud of what they've done. And so it's a rewarding business from that. I got to run it my own way. I wasn't confined by the restrictions of a franchise. I had the help and guidance, but yet the flexibility. I didn't have to pay a royalty. There was a lot of things I liked about it. I still today miss running my operation and doing that. I enjoy totally what I do now, but I do miss that projects. And I still drive around and say, hey, we made that one. That's still one of mine. So there's that reward factor. What I like least, you know, in the beginning, the challenge is getting customers. You got to build a customer base, and then long term, you got to manage that customer base and do it. But all things told, it's pretty rewarding, pretty happy business. I think the general culture of Signworld Owners is they're pretty happy and content with their business.
If I may add my 2 cents, when I ran my sign company, what I liked the best was the flexibility of my time. And what I liked the least was taxes.
It's because you made too
Corbin,
much.
taxes. Corbin Raleigh, come off of mute. Give us a question.
Yeah, I appreciate all of these answers. This is great. So my first question for this group, in your first year of business ownership, what was the greatest challenge that you had to overcome? How did you do it? What was the impact? You know, and how has that strengthened your business over the time that you've been in business?
Mike Riley, 7 years ago, what was your greatest challenge in the first year?
Yeah, that's easy. The greatest challenge was pricing. And whenever I'd ask anybody about pricing, they'd tell me about costing, you know, which I knew how to do. What I didn't know, to me, pricing is what will the market bear. And, you know, that was what I didn't have a feeling for. I didn't know if I was off by an order of magnitude or, you know, whether I was in the right ballpark. And basically what we did is every job we didn't get, we'd go to the prospect and ask them if they'd be willing to share with us who they selected and what they paid. And, you know, maybe one time out of 5, we would get that information. And then over time, we built up a database. And now I would say it's a slight exaggeration, but not much. I would say we never lose a job on price right now, even though we don't try to be the low price guys.
Okay. Steve Kapp, what's the greatest challenge for you in the first year?
Well, you know, quite honestly, it was growing pains for us because we were pretty aggressive out the door, and it was 2 of us, myself and my first sign maker that I'd hired. And thank God that I hired well at that time, because we got through those growing pains and actually got to a level of stability, and now our growth is a more digestible pace. We were able to add personnel within the first 4 months as well to, you know, help us cope with the growth that we were dealing with. So for me, it was really kind of coping with growth.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I heard is the day you opened, you were overwhelmed with business more than you were really ready to handle.
That's Roger that.
Okay, just want to make sure I heard you right. Jack Warner, what was your greatest challenge when you
I
first
think in
started?
the beginning, it's figuring out what is a sign, what are the different ways we can make it, who is the right customer. You grow from there, as Steve talked about, building processes to manage those things, and you learn to work on the business and not be working in the business.
Your greatest challenge is going to be your greatest weakness. So if you've never been involved in sales, that'll be your greatest challenge. If you've never don't know anything about financials, accounting and bookkeeping for the small business, that'll be your greatest challenge. So your greatest weakness will be your greatest challenge. Greg Micko, Greg, come off of mute. Go ahead.
Yes, great feedback so far. Thank you very much. One aspect that I was trying to understand and get more information about was, particularly at the beginning, where do your leads come from? Where do your sales come from? You know, Steve, you mentioned you were overwhelmed at the beginning, which sounds fantastic. I just don't have the site for that. And then, I mean, is it easy from a recruiting perspective to right size your business as your volume changes?
Okay, let's go back to Steve Captain. Steve, the day you opened up, you were overwhelmed with business. Where did that business come from? Was that website, internet? Was that referrals? Was that old friends?
It was website, and I'm really glad that we did what we did up front to position ourselves. We found that very quickly that people who are looking to buy signs, when they find a site and they call you, that they're ready to spend money. And if you're not there to respond to that, they'll go away. You'll lose that business. And we were very aggressive up front in making sure that we were answering calls, that we were working our leads that were developed from our website, and converting those into money. Now, that said, we still had, to deal with pricing and things like that, were things we had to kind of, walk before we ran. And, that was part of the challenge up front is making sure that, we weren't leaving money on the table, but at the same time that we weren't overpricing ourselves too, to lose the business. And I think we did a pretty good balancing act of that. And, we tested our boundaries as we went through it, and found we got the right mix together to do it. And then, getting the production done was the, next challenge. And with two people, it was up front, it was a little bit challenging, but that took some time for us to kind of even that cycle out as we got more process and then more people involved in the production side of the business. And so we've been pretty steady from then on. We have our ebbs and flows, but that's kind of normal in any business, I think.
Mike Riley, in the beginning, year one, day one, where did your new business come from? Was it website, internet, referrals, friends? What was it?
So we weren't as skilled as Steve at building our website, apparently. Initially, our sort of phase one was networking. That moved into repeat business. And then along the way, we kind of figured out the digital marketing thing, and that's become an increasing part of it. And then, where we are now, I guess you would call it repeat business, but we have enough of an installed base that, those customers come back to us either because they need service or because they're expanding or because they have another location or because they went to work for another company. So now it's kind of like, not exactly repeat business, but it's kind of like, people just know us and they find us.
Okay, Jack Warner?
Mike, if I can go back to you just for a minute. So what percentage of your business now is repeat or referral? How much of it is reliable customers as opposed to finding new customers?
If we define repeat as somebody who's ever bought from us before, then I would say that 70% of our business is repeat and 30% is new customers. And that's almost all, well, the 30% is probably split between referrals and web marketing.
Okay.
You know, and when Mike started, the internet wasn't quite as strong as it is now. We've learned over the years how to make that stronger. So in the beginning, the website does take a little bit of time. And so we do recommend reaching out to the contacts you have, not to sell a sign, but to let them know that you're available and you're good at project management. You're selling your skill set as opposed to selling a sign. Getting involved in the local chamber, the networking group, and the Rotary Club. But getting that website up and running early, and most Signworld owners will tell you that while they had to do some networking to begin with, by the end of the first year, 60, 70, 80% of their new leads are coming from the website. The web will drive the majority of the business once it gets up and running fully.
And we, Signworld, we will help you with your website. We want you to launch your website, as Jack said, 6 weeks before you open. I have a little follow-on question. Steve Cap, have you ever gone cold calling?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. When we see an opportunity, you know, somebody's got a sign that's damaged or you know, suffered the weather events out here in Colorado, you know, we definitely reach out to folks when we see opportunity.
Okay, but other than where there's an immediate opportunity, do you just go up and down the street knocking on doors, asking people, do you need a sign?
No, generally we don't. The internet
Okay.
keeps us very, very busy.
Mike Riley, have you ever do you regularly go cold calling?
We don't do it regularly. I can say where I've done it has been other sign companies. There was one, we were installing a sign next door and their illuminated sign wasn't working, and I went in and asked them if they needed help with it.
Okay. And Jack Werner, talk to us about cold calling.
Mike, did you get the job?
No, they claimed that they had somebody that did it, but
That's good though. Cold calling on a site. Well, actually, it wasn't cold calling. It was purpose calling because they had a problem. That's funny. You know, our goal is that you never have to go knocking on doors. Even the people that have done it before, there's too many no's to get to a yes, and so very ineffective. We're going to give you 56 different things you can do to fill the pipeline beyond the internet and the networking and the everything else that we're going to teach you to do. So our goal is for you to never have to go knocking on doors, cold calling.
Okay.
Great.
Ron Martin, Ron, come off of mute. Go ahead with your question.
I'd like to stay on this topic just a little bit in terms of word of mouth. It sounds like, Steve, you're staying in your main area of business comes from the website, and Mike, you're maybe not that level coming through the web. But how did you guys go about expanding into areas that maybe oppose? So Mike or Steve, excuse me, for example, most of your business comes in from the web. Have you thought about expanding into other areas of getting business like word of mouth? And what did you guys do to do that? Or what steps are you taking to broaden your business and grow and scale?
Okay, so back to you, Steve Cap. So you got a lot of business from the website, internet. You have these customers. Some of those are turning into repeat customers. What other things are you doing?
Well, one of the other things we've been doing is we've been trying to target national accounts, and we've been working with as a subcontractor to larger sign companies throughout the country to make those connections. And in one instance with Mohawk Industries, it actually paid off through our website, where they had a problem with a sign maker that was working with them and was actually not doing a good job, and they wanted a new sign company, and they asked us to do stuff locally, and they liked what we did, and that has led us to now more of a national account. So we're trying to expand into more of those kind of national accounts, somewhat opportunistically, I would say, but that's a goal of ours. Is we want to try and get at least 6, maybe 7 of those large national accounts going.
Okay. Mike Riley, you spoke about the website internet working for you. You spoke about repeat business. Anything else to add to the question? Other things you're doing? You spoke about your networking.
Yeah, I mean, most of our, we do have two things we're exploring in terms of that are an early stage for new business. One is we're setting up an e-store through Corebridge. So we think there's some opportunity to sell sort of stock items on the web. And then the second thing is we use a service called Construct Connect that puts us, gives us access to building projects, you know, general contractors and so forth. But the other thing, just we've already talked about the web, is, you know, we found blogs are enormously effective. And just two examples, if you search for sign removals anywhere in the country, will come up. Now, it's sort of weird that that happens. We even get calls from overseas. But I know what blog Google found that they like for some reason. And then the second thing we come up for is glass whiteboards, which is really a niche. But both of those are things that we've developed and done pretty well with. So blogs are enormously effective.
Jack Warner, your thoughts?
You know, the other thing that you're probably going to do is at some point, you're going to find that there's a category of customers you like, whether it be architects, commercial property managers, apartment complex work. You're going to join the trade association from that and network through that. And you're going to leverage the current customers you have in those niches to introduce you to their cronies and leverage out from there. So a lot of different ways that this business can expand and move into other things without you out knocking on doors, without you to sell it.
Okay. I just would like to go back real quick over some of the numbers. So today, Steve Cap, you have your repeat business, you have your referral business, you have your networking, and you have your website internet. What percent of your new business, not your repeat business, what percent of your new business still comes from the website?
About 95%.
Okay. And Mike Riley, what you have your repeat business, what percent of your new business comes from your website internet?
So if we include, you know, digital marketing, paid advertising, all of that in there, it's 50% from the web and 50% from referrals.
Okay. Jack, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, there's one other question you didn't get. Mike talked about at 8 years, what percentage of his business become repeat, but Steve, at a 2.5, 3 year business level, what percentage of your business now is repeatable customers?
You know, it's growing, and I'd say I'm probably in the 30% range,
Okay.
roughly.
It's a fair number at that range, at that level.
Okay.
If I may,
Bill,
follow-up question. How much do you, because this is this isn't a franchise, so there's no territory restrictions from selling into other people's territories. Have you guys ever run into a situation where you're trying to take business from another Signworld, I guess, owner by chance?
Steve Cap?
No, in fact, we kind of communicate here on the Eastern Front Range here of Colorado, and we communicate with each other, and where it makes practical sense for us to, you know, move an opportunity to a guy who's more local to that customer. For example, you know, Longmont for me is, you know, over an hour drive, and there's a Signworld owner in Longmont. So, you know, I will, you know, gladly give that business to that Signworld owner. He'll do the same thing for me if it's down in my area.
Okay.
Mike Riley, do you compete with the other Signworld owners around you?
You know, I'm sure we do, because there are a lot of Signworld owners in Southern California. We're seldom aware of it. You know, most of the time we don't know who we're bidding against. And if we do get the sense that the prospect is getting multiple quotes for a job, we'll usually tell them that that's probably not a fit for us, that we're probably not going to be the lowest price guys. But every once in a while, you know, when we get together with, you know, like there's a guy in Irvine, we'll talk about customers that we have in common and so forth. But in general, we don't know about it. I would say it's not a major thing.
Okay. Jack Warner?
I would agree. You know, we really teach the idea of camaraderie. You need each other's help more than you want to take away a customer. You know, when you're meeting a new customer, you're probably asking them first, who are they currently dealing with? If they're dealing with another Signworld owner, you're going to back off and say, let's repair it. That's my friend. Could you do it innocently and not know that it's another Signworld? It could happen, but you're not after hundreds of customers. You're after handfuls of customers. The chance of running into each other just doesn't exist.
Okay.
As Jack said, more importantly than competing with each other is the family. That we are family, we are friends, we work on projects together and split the profits. We share employees, we share supplies, we get together, talk story. We have Signworld owners that go on vacation with each other, but rarely do we compete with each other. Bill Hottie, Bill, come off of mute. Go ahead, Bill.
Hi guys. So this is going to visit on the idea of pricing. I'm on the front edge of trying to build out my pro forma, and rather than ask a question about how you guys did that, I'll dive into a conversation with owners after this. But one thing I'm curious about is, what is the sweet spot on pricing as far as like a markup over your direct materials and direct labor, and perhaps a function of, you know, indirect costs? Do you guys have a good gauge on that?
Jack Werner, why don't you start out? First of all, tell Bill what we provide as far as pricing training, and then your thoughts on guides for pricing.
Your business is gonna run off a system called Corebridge. You can look them up online. They're the largest provider of software in our industry. They've got thousands of users. It'll do your inventory, your CRM, your inventory control, your estimating, your invoicing, your project management. It'll do your time clock, your credit card processing, and then drop into QuickBooks Pro. You're going to put into, we're going to give you a list of the common materials that you're going to be using. You're going to go to the suppliers that we have in our network. You get current pricing on those, input those into the system. Then establishing an hourly billable rate, perhaps at $100 an hour for efforts put into it. It's going to calculate out that particular job that you put into the computer, it's going to take $220 worth of material. It's going to take 6 hours of labor, and it's going to give you a industry standard price. Well, a lot of help with that. At that same point, you know, each project is unique and different, so there's a learning curve to learning that. Now, from there, you can add on to the price if the customer is going to be a challenge. You can discount if you're aggressive to get the customer. So it's just giving you a basis of where the industry is. You'll also meet other Signworld owners and query them on how would they price a project, and they'll help you walk through. Ken, I'm going to start a couple of slideshows here for everybody that are going to go on in the background while we're talking. There's no video, no audio to them. The first one is going to show you facilities, both inside and out, so you can see how unique and different each one is. The second slideshow is going to show you what is a sign in 3 different categories. First is what we make in-house with the original equipment. Second is the things that we outsource that you won't have the equipment for, but you're going to have a roster of manufacturers that are capable of making those for you. The third category of that is showing you products that you would think of as a sign that are unique and different. The third slideshow is going to show you our wall of fame. You know, while you start off with simpler products, over time, your products get more elaborate. So this is just showing you some of the more elaborate products that Signworld have done, so you can see the scope of the work.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ken.
All right. Steve Kapp, do you have anything to add on to Bill Hottie's question regarding pricing and so on?
Well, you know, pricing is a science and it's an art, and you know, part of you know, the common sense part of it is knowing what your material costs are, and then, you know, as Jack said, getting that entered into Corebridge. The thing I would say is that, you know, depending on who your suppliers are, you need to check periodically with your suppliers and make sure that your material prices are accurate and up to date. And, you know, with this past year with COVID, you know, I've seen a lot of price fluctuation in acrylic, in aluminum. I haven't seen it very much in vinyl. But you'll know when those kinds of things happen that you need to check with your suppliers and get costs, and that's just part of doing your due diligence in your business. The art part of it is really kind of having a sense of where your business is and what you can charge and how you price things. There's market-based pricing, and there's also cost plus based pricing, and you're going to have to kind of determine what you're most comfortable with and how that reflects the market you're in, and how that's accepted by your customers. So that's part of the art part of it, I think.
Mike Riley, you mentioned earlier pricing has a lot to do with what the market will bear. Would you expand on that for us?
Yeah, so two thoughts. One is, it's a business strategy, right? What we say here is we want to make the most amount of money for the least amount of work. So to state it in the extreme, if we could double our prices and we lost half of our customers, to me, that would be a good outcome. We don't literally do that, but I mean, that's our approach. And then the second point is I think of it in terms of barriers to entry. So digital printers, for example, are, in my opinion, a relatively low barrier to entry. The cost has come down. A lot of people have them. So when we look at target margins, our target gross margin for things that are digitally printed is 72%. That's the number that works for us. For things that are made on a CNC router, which I believe is a higher barrier to entry, our target margin is 80%. So, I kind of look at it in terms of the competitive landscape, and, we have different target margins for different product families.
Okay, thank you. Give me a second. Okay, so Dave from Illinois, come off of mute, Dave. Go ahead.
Hey, Ken, appreciate it. Lots of good questions so far. I was going to ask a question about target margins, and so I'm glad you talked about that. I've thought a little bit about product mix and just trying to understand, how you kind of start your business. Maybe tell me a little bit about, what products do you lead with? What are the core products you start out with, and then, kind of related to that, what skills or capabilities do you look for in your first hire? How do you find that first hire? How do you marry those skills with the market needs, with what problems you're trying to solve in the marketplace?
Steve Kapp, let's start with you. Would you call yourself a generalist, or have you honed in on specific product lines?
I think he got kicked out, but he's back on now.
Steve. Okay, Steve Kapp, you're there. Can you hear me okay?
I can, Ken, sorry.
Okay, the question is, Steve, would you call yourself a generalist today after 3 years in business, or have you started to hone in on specific product lines?
I would say for the most part, we're a generalist. We still like the variety of different kind of signs and opportunities with customers. One of the things we like to kind of tout in our business now is our ability to do architectural and ADA kind of signage. And a lot of the customers we worked with in the last year, like Gables, for example, really kind of appreciated our insight and knowledge into the ADA requirements and making sure that they were compliant with those requirements. So in a sense, we kind of became a partner to them, solving those kind of problems, especially when it came to like inspections from fire inspectors and things like that, things that you don't expect, the sign maker to have to kind of deal with. So
for our guests on the call, ADA refers to the American Disability Act. These are the signs with Braille on them, signs with raised letters and raised graphics. Takes a special type of equipment to do. So it's a little sort of a niche area for some sign companies. Mike Riley, 7 years in business. Are you a generalist? Have you started to focus in on certain niches?
We continue to try to narrow the focus. I'd say it's more of product size basis than a product type where we narrow. We continue to raise our minimum, but the one thing that I guess we like to, I guess I would encourage everybody to do what you like to do. You're going to be successful at it if you do that. We like complex projects, so we tend to gravitate towards those to a fault. And just to give you one example, I mentioned we do a lot of sign removals. We're removing signs for Nikon, building top signs on a 25-story building. We've got that coming up at the end of January. If you want to know about swing stages, I never had a clue what they were or how they work, but we had to learn that for this job. So that's what we're doing.
Okay, be careful. Jack Warner, 10 years in business plus, 10 years plus. In the end, were you a generalist or did you start to focus in on niches?
In the beginning, your target customer is somebody that needs a sign and has money to pay for it. But after you've done some projects and taken care of some customers, you'll start to realize that either you like certain customers better or certain products better, or your staff is geared for those ones, and you're going to start to focus your marketing towards that. Because I came out of the restaurant world, the retail world, my niche became more customers like that, not the same ones, but restaurant chains, retail chains, because I could speak their language. So you're going to let the niche develop over time. So long-term, you're happier. Long-term, it fits you better. Long-term, you're going after the products and customers that you make more money, more profit, and easier life with. Let the niche come to you over a year or two. But most Signworld owners would tell you they're still the generalists because they like the variety and hard to say no. But they probably all say 20% is fleet vehicle graphics, another 30% might be property management companies, another 10%. There's going to be sweet spots to business. But at the same point, having some diversity allows you to not be pigeonholed either by competition or by changes in the world and the market. Being a little bit nimble to flex from one category to another allows you not to be stuck.
Okay. David Ferociak, come off mute, David. Go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
So I've got 1,000 questions, but I'll narrow it down to one.
Thank you.
My main question would be, given the opportunity, what would be the main focus that you've had out the floodgates?
Can you restate that question, David?
So when you were first given the opportunity to start a signage company, what was your main focus?
Okay. Mike Riley?
I think I understand the question. We went into this saying that we were going to distinguish ourselves on the basis of outstanding design. And I had in mind, if anybody remembers the early days of Apple, they used a company called Frog Design. And they weren't really known for the performance of their computers. They were known for the look. Everybody thought they were cool. And I had that picture in mind. The types of customers we went after, we learned they could care less about outstanding design. They had their marketing companies, they had all of their graphics, they had everything. They didn't need design from us. What they wanted, the way we describe it, is flawless execution. So that's been the change that we've made. We started out with one sort of strategy in mind and then modified it as we got more experience.
Steve Kapp, your thoughts?
Well, we kind of went into this, thinking, or the approach was that, we wanted to be very customer oriented. We wanted to understand the customer's challenges, problems, that they're looking to try and solve through signage, and making sure that answered the mail in those kind of business terms. And I think we've been largely pretty successful in accomplishing that. Also being, consultative in the approach of, pros and cons of different kind of ways of doing things. And, you know, getting a sense of where they want to spend money, how they want to spend money, how much they want to spend, and being able to, you know, put something together that that you know, what I call it answers the mail for them. And I think the most satisfying part of that is when they come back at you after the job is done and say, you know, you delivered exactly what you said you were going to do. And it not only fulfills my needs, but it, you know, exceeds what I thought it was going to deliver to me. That's, to me, very satisfying.
Jack Warner, your thoughts?
You know, in the beginning, you've got to learn what is a sign and what are the different ways that we can make it. So you've got to learn the product line and product business. But you also got to realize that this is a product business and a service business. You've got to deliver this custom project to the customer on the timelines and within the budget that you've committed to. So you've got to build processes and procedures to manage all these different custom projects. So it's a twofold process that you're trying to build together.
Okay, Roger Vasseur. Roger, come off of mute. Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, thank you. I think the question I would have is, having been in business for several years now, what's the one thing that you know now that you wish you knew starting in year one?
Mike Riley.
Well, the lesson we continue to learn, I mentioned it before, difficult customers. You know, we don't have a high percentage of difficult customers, but the difficult ones we have occupy an inordinate amount of time. And if you want to satisfy all your customers, which we do, you know, you tend to put a lot of effort into that. What we've learned, whenever we go back and look at a customer that basically we could never satisfy, we can see we should have known that right from the beginning. Like our first interaction, you know, they'll give you, you know, I don't know, it'll be something like, you know, we'll ask for a deposit and they'll say, I never pay a deposit to anybody. I don't agree to pay for something I haven't received. You know, something like that stands out, that just, you know, we continue to learn we should be better about screening out customers who aren't a fit for us and focusing on the ones who love us.
Okay, Steve Kapp.
You know, that's really kind of an excellent perspective, because I kind of share it, and that's something I think I'm still learning the art of, you know, understanding the customer as well in that regard. You know, are they going to be more work for us than meets the eye? And, you know, can you really charge for that? Probably not. So yeah, I think that's the difficult customer is definitely something you learn to deal with, and deal with it in unique ways. You got to be flexible, I think.
Jack Warner.
You know, one of the things that I teach new owner training in sales class every week is, you know, sometimes the internet, while it's our best friend, it's bringing us all these leads, it's tempting us to go talk to a stranger instead of spending at least some time with the current customers that already believe in us, know us, and have contacts that they can leverage us to. Because that way, meeting with that person, you're a consultant, not a salesperson. So it's no customer should be at that end. Realizing that every single customer we have has connections to others. Shame on us if we're not doing a better job of leveraging those relationships.
Okay, Mike Frostek. Go ahead, Mike.
So my question would be, in 2020 hindsight, prior to making the investment and being accepted by the Signworld folks, what do you wish you would have kind of researched or spent a little more time looking into of the opportunity that you think would have helped you better prepare yourself for opening day?
Mike Riley.
You know, I find it difficult. I found it difficult from the beginning to assess what's a realistic sales projection. You know, in my previous career, you would look at total available market, we'd look at what share is available to us, and we could make projections based on that. At least in our market in Southern California, we probably have 1/10 of 1% of the market, if that. So that approach doesn't work. So I found that I didn't, and I'm not a sales and marketing guy to start with. So I found I didn't have good metrics or good tools to develop what I thought was a reasonable sales budget and then to plan accordingly.
Okay. Jack, could you maybe cut the slideshow and answer the question? And then for those of you who have a second question, if you go to the bottom of your monitor with your cursor where it says raise hand, just click on the raise hand if you have a second question for us. Jack, what would you do differently?
Why don't you let Steve have a chance to answer that question first?
Steve did.
I'm sorry. At some point, Mike, you can only do so much research. That doesn't mean cut it short, but it means do what you need, and each one of you individually that you need to determine. Let's talk to as many Signworld owners as you need to, go visit as many as you like to. Out of that, you're going to learn to position yourself compared to some of them more than others. And you're going to take their numbers, their references, and use that as your benchmark for how you can do and where your challenges will be. But at some point, it's got to come down to, do I believe in myself? Have I been successful in the past? Am I qualified and am I ready for this? You'll never get to 100%. A lot of this has to believe, just like anything else you do in life that takes a big decision. I'm in charge. Get out of my way. I'm coming.
Yep. I don't think Steve had a chance to answer.
I didn't think.
Okay. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, with all things in life, you don't know what you don't know in things that you're not well experienced with. The one thing I'll tell you is that the training that Signworld offers you really gave me an excellent start to understand what I needed to do. And I don't think you could ask for a better, launching pad point, if you will, into the unknown. But, you got to be unafraid to keep going after the unknown, and you're going to make mistakes. It's inevitable. But just, make sure that you're planning for making that mistake and how you're going to recover from that. And, you'll do fine, honestly.
Okay. Sorry that I omitted you there, Steve.
That's okay.
We've got to the end. Dan Werner is one of our staff members listening in. Does anybody have we still have about 5 minutes. If you have another question, go to the bottom of your monitor and click on raise hand. And if anybody has another question for us. Okay, I guess not. So, Jack.
I think Corbin has his hand up here. Corbin, if you want to ask your question.
Thank you, Sheree. Yep, I did have just one question. I'm currently in an industry that has been decimated by the pandemic, trade shows and live events. In February, we were on the best year ever, having done $8 million worth of business. And then in March, our revenue projections just dropped off the map to where we're doing probably less than 90% this year than we did last year. Would you speak to how the pandemic has affected your own business 2019 to 2020?
Go ahead, Steve Kapp. How did was your business up, down, or did you come in on goal?
It was a little bit below what I expected it to be, not horribly reduced. But what it did do is it, to your point, Corbin, you talked about how, like conventions and things like that weren't as prominent. They weren't as prominent for us either. But we kind of pivoted off of that into the shopping malls and how they needed signage for social distancing, for having to wear masks and things like that they had on doors. And so one thing ends up getting dried up, there's opportunities in other areas as well. And you know, when the shutdowns first occurred, you know, a lot of restaurants were asking for banners, you know, that they were open for takeout and things like that. So, you know, there were a lot of other things that came into play that filled the void, if you will, of what the pandemic kind of took away from us.
Okay.
So,
Mike Riley, overall for 2020, were you on goal or off a goal?
We didn't hit our target. We had an aggressive, we still believe we can grow 25 to 40% a year even after year 8, and we didn't hit that. But just 2 metrics, we measure the sales that we book, you know, when a customer pays a deposit and approves an estimate, and then we measure the sales that are completed, of course, when the job's done and we invoice the customer. Our completed jobs were down 8% year over year. Our book business was up about 8% year over year. So another way of saying that is we have a very large pipeline of projects going into 2021.
Okay, Jack Warner.
You know, one of my roles here is to keep track of where Signworld Owners are at. You know, I probably sent out 40 emails over the last 2 days. I'm going through the entire roster, catching up with people I haven't heard from for a bit. I've gotten a lot of responses back. Very honestly, there are some that have had a challenging year. They were caught in industries that had a downturn and they didn't pivot quickly and properly. But for the most part, honestly, I've had a lot that have been equal years, a lot that have had good years and even better years than normal. But along with that, I think you also want to think about as you go into businesses, how can I feel safe and comfortable until this thing is over? Now, this is a business where you're in a business park with a couple thousand square feet and a handful of employees, so there's distancing there. You're only talking to a few customers a day, and some of that's by Zoom, or you're outside with them, so you're safe. If your sign maker's in the back room installing vehicles graphics on a vehicle, they're distancing. They're putting signs on the outside of the building, they're safe. If they're in the corporate office, the customer says, put the signs on the wall over there and we'll wait over here while you work over there. So you can feel comfortable and safe. We've had very little COVID cases through the Signworld organization. I think that says something as well. We're not only busy, but we're healthy because of the industry we're in. Signs right through a bad economy. I've got Signworlders that are doing big projects because of COVID, not to replace.
Okay, we don't have any more questions. So Steve Kapp, we thank you very much for taking time out of your busy business to join us today. Mike Riley, as always, thank you again for joining us. Jack, do you want to close it out?
Thank you all for being here. You're continuing to dig through, get back to Ken and Dan and myself and talk more. Talk to as many Signworld owners as you need to do that validation you need to do. We'll have another webinar just like this on Wednesday, the 27th, different panel of owners. So come back and you're either going to get similar questions and if other owners give you the same answer, similar answer, that helps validate that is the answer, and you're going to get new questions. We have a Discovery Day once a month. Normally you'd come out to California and spend a full day with us, but we can't do that right now because of grouping. So our Discovery Days are a Zoom day. They're different than this. This is kind of an unusually small group today for a validation webinar, and it's just because it's the very first of the year. Normally we'll have 15, 20 people on it. So our Discovery Days are a 7-hour day of Zoom. Sounds like a long day to be in front of Zoom, but it's quite effective. Each hour is a different format. We take breaks every hour, and it's kind of a deep dive. Instead of you seeing us and us not seeing you, you're on camera with us. But we don't invite you to that until you've done the homework. This is kind of more of a deep dive. It's kind of not the final step, but one of those last steps. We have one of those coming up on Friday, January 22nd, for those of you that have done the homework and are ready for that. We'll talk to Ken, Dan, or myself and get an invitation for that. The next one, if that's too soon for you, is Friday, February 19th. And we'll have to work towards that date. In the meantime, stay healthy, stay well. We wish you all the best in your journey of trying to figure out if Signworld's the right fit for you. Thanks everybody for joining.